What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining me today. We have a lot of great information. Today, I'm joined by Luci Dumas. Is
Dumas.
that right?
Like I said, if I'm feeling pretentious, it's Juma.
Dumas.
So your choice, your call.
Love it. Now, the crazy thing about Luci is that she's been in business for 38 years. And that's no simple, small feat, as most of you know. 5 years is probably when most of us give up, right? Or run out of steam or just have no idea what we're doing. And so for her to be in business for 38 years is already an accomplishment. But then beyond that, she's been full time that entire time. And she's made transitions between niches, which a lot of us struggle with. And so I plan on asking her some questions about that as well, especially now during COVID, because a lot of you that were wedding photographers may actually be able to glean some snippets of information on maybe how you can get into some other niches while everything with weddings is still a little bit crazy. So Luci, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to dig in.
Thank you. I'm just so happy and excited to be here. Thanks.
So let's jump right in here. We're going to be talking about in-person sales, and we're going to be talking about how you're able to sell 3 to 7 wall portraits at just about every session you have. That, number one, is impressive. But I want to start, and I want to back up a little bit more. Most people that I have coached or have worked with, when I am talking to them about in-person sales, especially if they've never done it before, they have some hesitations as to why they wouldn't do that. And maybe we can diffuse those really quick. So one is, I don't want to feel like a used car salesman.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
How, in your process of being able to do what you do you make sure that you don't come off that way?
So thanks. Great question. And thanks so much for having me on your show. It all starts with the foundation of the relationship. So I position myself and I coach people to position themselves as what I call the trusted advisor. So other people will call it the know, like, and trust, but I love the word advisor. I position myself as their friend, as a mentor in a way, and as somebody that they trust as a leader, because this is my world. They've never done this, or they haven't done it with me, or maybe they're repeat, but we build the relationship, and it starts with the first phone call. One of the things I find people are these days a little nervous about is getting on the phone. But that actually, if you're the one that gets on the phone, you're a step ahead of, 1,000 other potential photographers. By the way, Easton, in my zip code, which is about a 3-mile radius, if that, there's 880 photographers that show up on Google.
Nice.
So do not say there's too much competition in my area.
Yep.
And so when I'm asking questions, I'm getting to know them, I'm planting seeds for the potential wall portraits. I'm getting them emotionally connected to the reason. And then I'm setting it up so that then I'm able to make suggestions that then at the consultation, I'm expanding on that. I'm showing them products. They're photographing their home, and we're talking about the colors in the home and where they might display portraits. Then at the session, part of why I can sell 3 to 7 wall portraits is that my sessions, I do a lot of variety. I do more outdoors these days. I used to do a lot of studio when I did a lot of babies. But I do all the breakout groups. I might have 4 or 5 different family groupings in different spots. So they're going to see 75 plus images. Some people, that isn't, that's not their philosophy, like pare it down to the best. To me, I leave in enough that they could buy those 7 wall portraits and a book. And I leave in about a third I know they're going to take out.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
So that they've got something to take out and they're still leaving in the ones I know are great.
Very cool.
So like, if I was like, here, Easton, do you want this blue pencil? You say yes or no. If I say, which do you prefer, the blue, the pink, or the red pencil, then you're going to pick one or two. So there's a psychology of sales. And then in the sales room, I have a system, step by step, where the photographs kind of sell themselves with my trusted advisor encouragement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's a couple of, like, I don't know if we want to get deep into my two secrets in the sales room. But first of all, it's not a secret. If you have a projector and you show the work 6x6 or 7x7, you're going to sell more large portraits than if you have it on a TV, because even the biggest TV is not 8 feet tall.
Right.
then you might as well go to a movie theater and do your sales.
Right.
Or a laptop. And then, I was around when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and we had this thing called film, right? Have you heard of it?
Uh-huh.
So they used to make slides instead of paper proofs for us. Trans previews was a term. So in order to show sizes, I had boards cut, just white foam core in sizes and different shapes as well. Mm-hmm. So at a certain point during my sales session, if there's an image I know would be just amazing as an art piece, which there are always lots of them, I get up out of my chair, I grab the 30x40 board or the 40x40, because being a Hasselblad user for decades, I love me some squares. Mm-hmm. And I hold it up like an inch away from the screen, cropped a little bit, and suddenly they see it as wall art. It makes all the difference in the world. They always make a sound. And the sound is always like, oh. And right. So now it's ready to frame in their mind.
Right. Well, that's really cool. And guys, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Luci today, and she is a PPA Master Photographer that has been in business for 38 years. She sells 3 to 7 wall art portraits per session that she does, just about all of them. If you're watching this on a replay, just comment replay. If you're watching this live with us now, just chime in and say hello, leave us a comment, and we'll make sure to leave a little bit of time for questions as well. So if you hear something and you're like, wait, I have a question about that, go ahead and comment with the question, and we'll go ahead and answer that when we get time. Or if we run out of time, I'll have Luci go back through and answer your questions as well. So Luci, I love what you're talking about here. I love that you really put a lot of time, energy, and effort into this whole process. It's not just, I'm going to take your picture and then you're going to buy something from me. Mm-hmm. You really draw them in. You make sure that they understand the process. But with that, if I was to hire you to do a family portrait right now, what's the session fee / package structure? Are you doing a session fee, then you're doing packages, or are you doing a la carte? Is there prepayments involved? Like, kind of just walk us through what that looks like.
Sure. So before I go into that, I want to just make sure people understand that the first thing I do is I get in the place of service. I so passionately believe in the value of what I provide that I'm absolutely committed to create for them art that will be treasures in their home forever, for as long as they keep them. So just want to make sure I got a little mention in on that. So I collect a session fee. It was like sitting session. I collect a session fee and a minimum purchase. So I keep the session fee low, so that if they're doing a comparison of session fees, I'm in the middle to on the low end. So that, especially sometimes the moms will tell their husband, well, this one, the session fee is this much and this much and this much. So it's all psychology. So it may only be $150. And I collect a minimum purchase in advance somewhere, so that the overall initial investment is around $500. because I find that's enough. Shut my door here. That's enough to pre-qualify people. That if they will comfortably invest $500 in advance, they're going to easily spend $2, $3, $5, $20,000. You know, somewhere in there. Everybody's different. Sorry, I have to open my door again because the fan is out there, and I'm in a little cave. Okay. So does that make? Are you following? Picking up what I'm putting down, Easton?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so the thing that I tested back when I was the only children's and baby photographer in San Diego, almost, the phone rang all the time. So I got to test this. I don't say it's $500 and you have $350 to spend. I say the session fees let's say $150. There's a $350 minimum purchase. So those are paid together to book on my calendar.
Gotcha.
So it's $500 to book me, and you'll have $350 to spend. So I walk it up, and then I walk it down. $150, $350, $500. You have $350 to spend.
Gotcha.
That helps them understand that they're buying products. It weeds out people that are looking for the $200 shoot and burn. And it doesn't scare off people that could easily invest thousands, but aren't quite ready to make that commitment. And I know as I take them through my trusted advisor sales process, they're going to get there.
Right.
So it just seems to be a sweet spot, $500-600 in advance. Because I was thinking about that I would get some people that just would buy one 8x10, and I was like, how can I stop that? And
Right.
so I started doing this minimum purchase. And then I tested how high I could go, and I noticed that when you're getting into the middle, like 700, 800, 900, that there are people that push back on that. Now at the consultation, there are options if people want to pre-purchase and get some bonus money. That has been working for people. I haven't done that a lot, but the times I've offered that, it's a nice little option. I think there was one other part of that you asked me. And then I sell a la carte. Packages just confuse me.
Gotcha.
Everybody's home is different. If I were a studio photographer and I kind of did a certain set routine of photographs that I knew how I could bundle them, maybe a package would work, but I find that it just confuses things. So,
Gotcha. And primarily you're doing babies at this point, right? And families?
No, families.
Families.
Yeah, a lot more families.
Now, one thing I want to mention about families, and for those of you that are out there that do boudoir, you have an ability to make a $4,000 or $5,000 sale just because of the nature of that type of session and the impact that you can have in those people's lives. But with families, if you are only taking the family portrait, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're also doing the family a disservice, because if Luci was only going to take a portrait of the family because that's why she was hired, then she has nothing to sell except for that one photo of the family, right? And subconsciously, if the mom especially is booking, and we're still seeing that that's generally who is doing the booking these days, they're thinking about that portrait. The one that they're not thinking about is their spouse and their kid individually. And the moment that they see that photo, they go, oh my God, right? And so if you have images of the spouse and the kid, and the spouse and the other kid, and then you have mom, and the one kid, and mom and the other kid, and then you've got mix and match of varieties of all those things. That's what allows you to have the actual content to be able to sell them more, right?
Right. More is more,
right?
In my opinion. And one of the often neglected is mom and dad without the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I always bring an assistant So if the children are too young to just stay the heck out of the photograph, and then my assistant takes them away and is, protecting them from danger or distracting them, because almost always a 16 by 20 or larger of the couple will go in their bedroom.
Sure.
That's one of those little icing on the cake. And the other thing about the variety that I create, and because I want to sell, like some people, their whole thing is one fabulous portrait for, bunch of money. And that is great. I just am not like that. When I did weddings, I would do 12 rolls of film, where most people were doing like 5 or 6 for one wedding, because when I get into it, I'm creative, I'm excited. I want to just think of everything I can do for them. So in the family portraits, it's the same thing. I will see people show up. I live in San Diego, so of course there's a lot of beach portraits in my history. So I'll show up like 2 hours before sunset and be working till the last glimmer of light. And in that time, I'll see like 4 or 5 photographers show up, click, 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 spend like 20 minutes and leave. And, that's just my style. Because so many times the very last pictures are the winners.
Yeah.
Of course, at the beach, because the light gets good. And sometimes it's the ones at the start. I just never know. I start having so much fun, I forget I'm doing it for money. Do you know what I mean, Easton?
Yep. Yeah. No, I do that all the time, and sometimes it's on a wedding day, and I'm like, wait a second, we have to move on. We can't keep on doing this same shot, or whatever.
That's why I had to quit weddings. Is I just kept adding more and more and more things I wanted to do, and it would take 2 days for me to physically recover.
Yeah. So let's move on to a next question. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is you've got this session fee that then there's a minimum required purchase. Maybe that's $350 or whatever. What do your products start at cost wise? Like, is that $350 going to cover a wall portrait?
No,
It's not, right?
No. So part of the psychology of sales for me is that I have something that they could buy at least 1.5 of with the minimum. So I have an 8 by 10 that's priced, I don't know, right now I think it's $200. When you purchase a wall portrait, it goes down to $125.
Mm-hmm.
So for that $350, they could purchase, basically most of 2 8 by 10s.
Sure.
But I almost never sell smalls. I often create a bundle at the end of the wall portrait decisions that will include either bonus pricing on some smalls, or I'll just gift it to be the hero. Like, mm-hmm. This is awesome. I love what we've designed for your home. The total is $8,000, or I might just say 8. I like, using the simple numbers. And after I gauge their reaction, and if they say, "Oh gosh," and there's those other images we really love that are in the grouping of smalls, which, by the way, part of my secret method is that we separate the ones they like into potential wall, small, and album. Mm-hmm. So then we work on the wall category, and then they'll be like, "Oh, and there's others I like." So then I'll say, "Well, I love what we've done. If 8 is workable for you, you can pick out 10 smalls of any of the ones that we don't already have." And normally that would be about $1,500. But I want you to have those. I so love what we've designed that, how does that sound? So yeah. I do a little bit of bundling in the sales room, but it's a case by case.
Yeah, basis. I love that. I think you have to do that. And we do something similar with us in the wedding niche. Our packages include an album with a very minimum amount of images. So
Mhm.
that way they're always going to show up to the sales session, right?
Right.
But then they go through the sales session and we simply pick out the favorites that they have from each category of their wedding day. And they end up with like 300 or 400 pictures, which
Hmm.
clearly can't even fit in one album. And so then we help them go back through and look at just the ones that they loved. We'll go for wall portraits first, because if we do the album first, then they think that the process is done and they don't even want wall art.
Hmm.
But as long as we start with wall art, and I'm sure you've found similar types of things that work for you in that sense, then they'll go through and maximize the album as well. But
Right.
we didn't do this for 10 years. We were shoot and burn for 10 years, or maybe 8 or 9 years, right? And we were making multiple six figures a year, but we started doing in-person sales with this, soft strategy, and we already charge about $5,500 for a wedding, and so we
Hmm.
were then able to get 25 to 3,500
Sure.
average on the back end. Some of which have spent 7,500, right? So you're looking
Right.
at like a $13,000 wedding,
Right.
and it just kind of makes you sit back and go, I can't believe I didn't take 2 to 3 hours to do this for every customer for the past 9 years. I could be in a very different place.
Yes. So that my 12 years, and I've got that same head slap. Um, I did engagement sessions and I sold from the projector. And from the engagement sessions, they almost always purchased at least one wall portrait and a small album.
Mm.
Then I would get proofs. I would sequence them like an album, and I would send them home with a map to and a discount, special pricing if they kept that sequence pretty much like I set it up. And yeah, the head slap, because the weddings I've done over the last 10 plus years, I've done a few. Um, I do the in-person sales, and $6,000, $12,000, $25,000 wedding orders by doing it in person. So yeah, I have that same regret.
Yeah.
I could probably be owning my own island somewhere,
Right.
COVID free, if I had, because most people, even with that, would spend at least 50 to 100%. Like if they invested, just like you, 5,000 up front, then for most people, they would add another 250 to another 5,000. If that's their comfort zone. And I was good at that too. My packages, because with weddings, I did packages. They looked like they had enough stuff in them, but when it came down to deciding, then people always needed more. I just kept it 60 pictures, one wall portrait was my main, most popular package. So it's easy to add a second album, parent books,
Yeah.
lots of smalls, all that stuff.
I find people are weird when it comes to that kind of stuff, right? So if you put too much in the package that they aren't actually interested in, it becomes like one of those gift sets that you buy from like the salon store, where it's like you really only need the mascara, but you end up buying like 15 other products that you're never going to use just because it seems like it's going to save you $5 or something like that, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's like that is not creating a positive experience. It's creating waste, basically,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I love what you said on that, but I want to pivot real quick because something you mentioned was that the price of an 8x10 was around $200, and once they purchase a wall portrait, that drops to $125.
Right.
I've got a lot of pushback from people because we preach to mark up your products at least 10 times. And it seems as though you're doing something very similar, if not more, with your 8x10s. I'm sure the scale of that is going to slide to be less as you get more expensive with your bigger portraits. But being a master photographer with the PPA, what is your reasoning for your pricing? And do you believe that it's right?
Okay. So my reasoning for pricing is charge as much as I possibly can,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that with expensive items, I've marked up at least 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about if I did an acrylic or a frame, a beautiful, I love the hand gilded frames from like Hussar, and can't remember the other company that's still doing them. so that if I damage that at any point, opening the box or delivering, I can order a new one.
Right.
I still make money. So that's my minimum. I like to have at least the cost of goods overall. So let's say they've purchased 5 wall portraits, they have a dozen smalls, they have a book, and that's, I don't know, we'll say $10,000. I don't want to give anybody more than $1,500 of that. Any labs, anything. So at the minimum, 20% is the lowest overall, because the 8x10s cost me the change in a, have a little jar.
Right.
I could grab a handful and pay for an 8x10, but then that 30x40 canvas is going to be, I don't know, $300 shipped, something like that. So it's an averaging.
Gotcha.
Because I know, like, I'm creating my own bundles. But yeah, I charge as much as anybody will pay me. I love that. I'd charge my formula would be $1 million a piece if I can find somebody that will pay me that. So.
Yeah. No, I love that, because I feel like, so I know PPA only says like 6 times or something like that to mark up your prices. But for me, it was like, I think that was relevant 10, 15 years ago. But nowadays, especially with inflation and all that kind of stuff, depending on the product that you're selling, if it's an 8x10, selling that for $5 is a 3 or 4 times markup, right? And that's not going to help you stay in business at all.
No.
Whereas the $2,500 portrait, 30x40 or whatever, you can mark up 3 times and get away and still make a really good profit off of. So I think you have to be careful with that, right? It shouldn't be just here, I just mark up everything 10 times, because you may not ever sell your wall portraits at that point if they're $20,000, right? But I think it's important to understand your cost of doing business and your cost of goods. And that's where a lot of people really, really mess up when they're doing in-person sales, because they may go, okay, well, you want to buy an album? Great. Here's the album price, and it's $400. But then they add in all the other images, and then before you know it, it cost them $400 to get this album printed, and they made $100 total. But they spent 4 or 5 hours doing the whole process plus the session and all that.
Yeah. So there was something you said that reminded me of, because you said, "What's my overall philosophy?"
Yeah.
So the way I approach it. Well, first of all, if you think about the average person who's hovering around 70,000 to 130,000 sales a year, if their expenses are normal, is actually going to keep about 30%, or about a third of what they bring in. Once you pay taxes and all the other things. So if you don't want to spend a month figuring out your cost of goods, just figure you keep 30, a third. So then you think about how much you want to earn in a year. And then you multiply that by 3. So if you want to earn, we'll say 30 or 33, then times 3, that's 100,000. So we want to get to your 6 figure. So you need to bring in 100,000. Then you figure out how many clients do you want to do in the year. So if you want to do and think you can get 100 clients, then you need to bring in at least $1,000 average per client. Then figure out what it is you feel like you can easily sell almost every time.
Yep.
So if you can easily sell a 16x20 and 3 and 4 smalls, then that 16x20 could be 600 and the smalls could be 100 a piece, and you reach your 1,000, and that's where you place your pricing.
Yeah. And I think that's a core principle that people have to understand. Like, don't go switch over to IPS without any type of system whatsoever. You've got to know your core foundation, what it's costing you to do these things, what it's costing you to sell these products, and then how much you want to make as an individual. So I love that. I want to move on because we're almost running out of time here.
Yeah.
Quick question. What would you say to somebody that is struggling to charge what they're worth because they couldn't purchase their own product?
Well, we're not our client.
Mhm.
You know, someone selling a Jaguar, I bet most sales people on the lot can't afford a Jaguar.
Yeah.
Um, we're selling, we're selling, that's such a, like, we're just not our client, but
Yeah.
I am my client now. I can easily afford myself.
Right.
So it depends on where you want to be. We're not a charity.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's important is to be able to separate our product from our art and think about it as a product. Also, think about it like, okay, how much time am I spending that I could be earning money doing something else? Pharmaceutical rep, selling shoes, a teacher, whatever. So we need to get paid for that time.
Mm.
So, thinking about it from a practical standpoint. And then if people really have that heart for like, I just want everybody to have wonderful photographs, I want to be of service. Okay, so offer 2 sessions a month for absolutely free for people that could never, ever in their wildest dreams afford a portrait but would treasure it.
Yeah.
There's a family that I photographed that has 2 kids with life-threatening illnesses. And they gave me not a dime, and I gifted them wall portraits and different things. And I get to follow the course of these children's lives. And over, she will mention to me, thank you so, so much for that. It captured our son when he was strong and could hug us. And so, yeah, so the part of me that loves to give is satisfied in that way. I did work with San Diego County Adoption and did calendars, and almost all the kids in the calendars got homes. So when I'm being generous of heart, it's not at the expense of my own, income.
Yeah.
The other thing, I could talk for hours, is when people pay a good price for something, they value it more.
I love that. Yes.
So I must charge well so that people treasure
Yeah.
the portraits. And do we have time for that one little quick story? What happened yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay. So I got a call from a client from 1995 and 97. And she's wanting to, so there's a company that did albums that the covers, they did it in the 90s. The covers all got sticky and they need to be replaced. So she wants to fix that, but she also wants some other photographs. And she said, Luci, and I think she has like 7 portraits from the 2 sessions. Luci, I absolutely treasure these photographs. And of all the things I've ever spent significant amount of money on, this is the best I've in my whole life.
Mm.
That's why I do this. Not because I got money in my pocket, but because 1995. So is that 25 years? Yeah.
But that's because of the experience that you've created too. It's not, so people have to understand this. Most of my people in my peer group that make at least $500,000 a year on photography alone will openly admit to you they're subpar photographers and fantastic business people, and that the customer service experience they take their clients through is why they make their money. Right?
Right.
The portrait obviously has to be decent, right? You have to know what you're doing. You need to have your technical skills and perfect those. But at the end of the day, the client experience will make or break the sale, not the photo.
Right.
And so I think that's really important for people to keep in mind. And I want to touch on one other thing you said. You said, what you value, like if you were to spend a little bit more money on something, then you're going to value it more. And that couldn't be more true. And I think I wanted to just drive that point home a little bit. If if I was to tell you right now, hey, I have a Ford Explorer, right? Just a normal SUV, base level. I want to charge you $100,000 for it. What would you say? I'm crazy.
Yeah,
Right? All right. Then I want to go, okay, well, I have a Ferrari that I want to sell you for $10,000. You're going to second guess that, right? Because there's got to be something wrong with it for that price,
right.
right? Maybe it's a death trap, or maybe it doesn't have wheels or brakes or something. Because how could a $100,000+ car end up being $10,000, right?
Or it's a little toy car.
Right. And so what I've noticed in my life is that if I can't buy something that I want right now, it becomes an obsession to save that money. And then the moment that I actually get to take that $5,000 and slam it down on the counter and be like, give me what I've been waiting for, it's the most monumental moment, as opposed to buying a $10 product from, JC Penney after them doing my little pictures or whatever. Right.
Right. Yep.
I think that that's really, really important. And it translates to every area of our lives. So we can't forget that that also applies with our photography. Right.
Mhm. Absolutely.
All right, cool. So let's answer a few questions really quickly. I saw one come through. What software program do you use to do your sales sessions and show your photos?
So I would use ProSelect if I got in the habit of using it. I started with iPhoto, and there's some things on my Mac. There's some things it can do that were more like when I switched from a projector with the slides, that were not intuitive in ProSelect. I've actually upgraded my ProSelect like 4 times. So, but you get in a habit of using something, and I don't want to practice and ruin a sale. But when I coach people, I help them figure out how to use either Bridge in Photoshop, or if they're, heaven forbid, Lightroom users. Just kidding. I'm just not a fan of Lightroom because I don't know where those photos live. I've tried to figure it out. The one tricky part with that is you can't, you have to start music on your computer, and you have to hand click because their slideshow is only either 2 seconds or 5 seconds.
Hmm.
2 seconds is too fast. 5 seconds feels like eternity.
Yeah.
But you can use stars to separate. I have, a whole system where I can do these albums. Anyway, so you can do it in that. Fundy, also, one of my coaching clients is a big Fundy fan and uses that all the time. So whatever works. What I don't use is programs where you do the room views, because the power of them actually physically seeing the print on my boards as if it's ready to frame, is what works for me.
Sure.
I also, if I used ProSelect, the only time I would use the part that where you can look at actual sizes. You know what I'm talking about, Easton, where you can say, okay, here it is in a 30/40, now 24/30, is after we've determined that they love these 9 images and we're trying to decide on size.
Gotcha.
But I use the boards for that. So, I'm an analog gal, but having to function in the digital world. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right. Next question is, are digitals an option to purchase for your clients?
Good question. And personally, no.
If
Because
they purchase a actual print, do they get that in digital?
no,
Cool.
nope. The only thing I will offer is if they want to be Facebook friends, once the order is done, I'll post the ones they purchase if they want to with my watermark and tag them. And I make it clear that they're not to print them. They're not to take my logo off. I don't put it across the front. I just, a nice little neat signature logo. My reason is that my brand, my reputation is highest quality photographer, that I control everything. And early in my digital shift, I gave my nephew files for his Christmas cards. Normally, we get together at Thanksgiving, I'd do photographs, and then I'd make cards for them. So I was like, hey, let's just do it. Here's the digital file. When I got the Christmas card, Easton, the skin was literally blue.
Yeah. They
And
probably printed at Walgreens or something.
yes, and his wife, years later, we had a discussion, and she thought I was no longer a good photographer.
Mm.
Even though they have the most beautiful wedding album and 4 wall portraits in their home, and that every session up till then has been great, she judged my photography, knowing me 25 years, on a print that she made at Costco.
Right.
And right then and there, I'm like, I cannot afford to have somebody go in a house, look on the fridge, see a photograph, and say, oh, that's nice. And they say, Luci Dumas took that. And in their mind, they think, I'd heard she's good. What's up with that?
Right.
So that's my personal thing. Now, if I was going to sell digitals, it would be, let's say, $5,000. You get 1 wall portrait, any size, and you get 2 5x7s. You get 100 images or 50 images, and you get 2 5x7s from each of those. So that there's almost no reason for them to go print something. I might even give them a stack of 4x6s to put in their Christmas cards. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Next question is, I'm a brand new client. I'm contacting you for the first time. How much information do I already know on your website via session fee, minimum purchase? And then are you going to be sharing your prices, a la carte prices, ahead of time before I book with you?
So there are no prices on my website. I want them to get excited about my work, have an emotional reaction, feel like, oh, I think she's probably nice and very capable. I'm going to contact her. So I don't want the pricing to be a barrier, either too high, too low. Okay, now I have my answer. I'm going to move on. That was part 1, right, of the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So part 2 is on the phone, I do give them it's the Charles Lewis formula. I don't know if you know Charles, but I learned a lot from him back in the day. And so I memorized this. Most of my clients invest a minimum of X to X. So I might say 600 to 800. That might include something nice for your home and a few smaller ones as gifts. Does that fit in your budget?
Mm-hmm.
And if they start saying, well, what's included? Well, the next step is for us to get together for a consultation. And I'll show you more of what I do, learn more about you, and I'll share what, more detail on pricing. So do you want to get your calendar out? We'll go ahead and get together.
Very cool.
So I personally, I send them home with a packet with pricing. It just feels more comfortable for me. And sometimes, even though I try to get the spouse in on the consultation, they don't always come. So at least they've got something to look at to be a little bit prepared.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. Well, that's awesome. That's a ton of information for you all. I hope you guys are soaking it in and that you're going to get excited to start doing some IPS. I will tell you from my own personal experience, it changed everything for us.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't realize how much money you're leaving on the table until you start doing your first sales and you go, oh my God, I could have had this much more money. But beyond that, I'll also stretch this to say that your clients will be happier.
Yes.
And will speak more highly of you and will refer you more if you do IPS the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't one solid right way, but there's definitely a right way to have a customer experience in place. And if you mess that part up, like we've said already, and you make them feel like it's a bait and switch type situation, you're going to lose them almost every time. And so transparency is very important. I think being you is important. If you're trying to be someone different than who you are, they will know. And one of the other things that I've noticed in my journey, at least, and maybe you can speak to this, is that if I change my tone and start talking very quickly when I mention the money, they're going to feed into that and understand and get and put up their defenses right away. You have to become comfortable talking about money, people. Like, money is what runs the world, right? It's how we keep our studios open. It's how we put food on the table. And so you walk into any other store, they're going to tell you the price, and they're going to tell you the price just like anyone else tells you the price. But yet, for some reason, us as photographers struggle to confidently say our pricing, right? We're like, hope they're going to say this is okay. Oh, okay, it's
Right.
500. Is that
Yeah.
okay? Wait, but also I you don't have to spend 500 because I have something that's 100, right? And you automatically unsell yourself.
Energy is everything.
Yeah, yeah.
The energy behind things.
All right, well, guys, let's wrap this up. Luci, thank you so much for joining us. This has been fantastic. If you guys are watching and you have more questions, please leave them in the comments here. And Luci will, if you tag her, she'll be able to see it, and then she can respond for you. Beyond that, Luci also has a coaching program that she offers that is fantastic. She's had hundreds of photographers that have gone through based on either working with her, having conversations with her, or actually joining her program. And so she has 10 spots that she wants to give away. It's a free consult, I believe. Is that right?
It's a create the business of your dreams strategy session.
Okay.
So it's a deep dive into your dreams and some of your blocks. So you will have so much clarity at the end of it. And I would absolutely love to, for 10 of your listeners to get the opportunity to have that conversation.
Very cool. So, guys, as soon as I'm done with this, I'll have Luci post the link for that. It's just for 10 people. But if she has openings that end up coming up later on, or someone's watching this video in a month from now, make sure you click the link because she may have some other availability that has opened. But she's got 10 spots for the first 10 of you that jump on this today, and we'll be posting the link for that. Again, Luci, thanks for joining me. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
I love it. Thank you.